In this video, we're going to create the development environment for building our React application, and it might feel unnecessarily complex. It's a little bit daunting at first, but once it's set up, it's good to go. You don't have to touch it anymore. And it's good to actually understand what all the different parts of a modern React project do and how they work and how you can manipulate them to maybe work differently for whatever project you're doing. After you set it up once, you probably don't need to set it up again. In fact, Facebook has created this Create React App package, which allows you to basically generate all of the boilerplate React code straight away. But in this course, we're going to set up the development environment manually, just because it's a really good thing to understand. So let me just close this for now. All right, so this is Visual Studio Code. I've basically just made a directory on my desktop called Color Picker, and I've just opened that up into VS Code here. So let's get going. So in the terminal, I'm just going to initialize an npm project by typing npm init. And it's going to ask me a few questions about the project here. The package name, color picker, that's fine. Version, fine. We don't need a description. Entry point, you can leave that standard as well. Test command, that's fine. We don't have a git repository. We don't need keywords. Author, give yourself some credit here. License, leave that. And that's all good to go. So that's going to create us a package.json file, which is basically all the metadata and other settings and stuff like that around your npm project. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to create a directory for the actual project to live. Let me just make this a little bit bigger here. So I'm going to create a public directory. Inside that public directory, I'm going to create an index.html file. This is the actual file that's going to be the home for our project, basically. So I'm going to use Emmet and just quickly generate a HTML file here. Under script tag, I'm going to put js/main.bundle.js. You're going to find out where that name comes from in a second. That's all we need to do. And we also need a container that React can target to put the application inside of. So I'm just going to type div class equals React container. There we go. That's pretty much all we need for now. Under the public directory, I need to create this JavaScript directory here. So I'm just going to create a new folder inside, call it JS. Don't need to put anything inside it yet. We'll do that in a second. The next thing we need to create is a directory that's going to actually hold the React project itself. So it's typical to name this source. I'm going to name this source as src. Inside that, this is where our React program lives, but it's not where the browser reads it. So we're going to set up webpack in a moment to pick up our React project from the source folder, bundle it all up and move it to the JavaScript folder that is then read by this front end HTML file. So I'm just going to start the source folder off with the our app file. So that's capital A, app.js. You can do JS or JSX. It really doesn't make a difference. I'm going to do JSX just because it will highlight the difference between that and the JavaScript file that gets bundled. And we also get a cool little fancy React icon here. And who doesn't love that? So here I'm just going to write console.log app file just for now. We'll come back to this later. So what we need to do now is we need to install React and the React DOM. So we do that simply by typing npm install React and then space React DOM. You can basically list all of the packages that you need, and next to the install command one by one, it's fine. So that's going to create us a node modules folder, and it's going to basically put React and everything React needs into that folder. And it's also going to create a package lock folder. You don't need to worry about that. This is computer generated. It basically controls the packages you've declared as dependencies for your project and the packages that those packages declare as dependencies for their projects. So that just keeps track of all of that stuff in there for you. If we go back into package.json, you can see we have React and React DOM as dependencies. They're dependent on this project actually working as expected. So your version numbers might be slightly different. That's perfectly fine. So the next thing we need to install is the scripts that are actually going to process our React application and convert it into a format that the browser understands. And the industry standard product for doing that is called webpack. So we can install that using npm as well, typing npm. I'm going to use I this time, which is the shorthand for install. It's just a little bit quicker. Webpack, and we also need the webpack CLI, which allows us to use it from the command line. And I'm going to put in the save dev flag. The save dev flag basically flags that this is a development dependency. It's not actually needed for the application to run, but it's needed to be able to develop the application. So that's the difference between a dependency and a dev dependency there. Can install that. Okay, once that's done, let's just install the rest of it so all the installing is done. So we actually need to install a few loaders, which are going to actually process the JavaScript. So Webpack uses loaders to determine what processes it should actually do on your script. So let's type npm I. We need the Babel loader. We need a few presets for Babel so that it knows what to do. We need Babel /core. We need Babel /preset env. Babel /preset React. And their dev dependencies as well. So let's just install those. Hopefully I spelt them all right. Alright, so they're all in there now, and we can see them underneath our dev dependencies, and the dependencies for the program to actually run is React and React DOM. So the next thing we need to do is we need to create a Babel configuration file. So I'm just going to create that here, back here. Make it called .babelrc. You'll notice if you have the same theme as me that it's going to create a little Babel icon here. Basically, this is just a JavaScript object that takes a presets value, which is an array of the different loaders we want to use. So we want to tell Babel to use the loaders we just installed. Babel /preset env, and another value of Babel /preset React. There we go, save it. I've got format on save on, so that's why you can see my scripts kind of might change the way they look once I save it. We don't need that anymore, we can close that down. Close that down, close that down, close that down. Alright, so the next thing, well, the last thing we need to do to actually set it up is we need to configure Webpack. So we're going to do that by creating another file, which is a Webpack config. So if we type webpack.config.js, you'll see we get this lovely Webpack logo as well now. Now I know we're going to be using the native path module from Node, so I'm going to just initialize that at the top here. Require path. And then we're going to export an object right here. So this object needs a few different things to tell it what to do. The first thing is an entry point. So we type entry, that's an object. And we have an entry point, which is our main one. This is dynamic, this value can actually change, but we're going to leave it as main for now because we're not doing any code splitting. Source, which is where our app.jsx file is. So this is basically saying when you start, go into here, and then everything that's imported into that app file is going to be processed as well. Now we need to declare where the output of the Webpack process is. I'm going to set the file name. Yeah, if I type name like this in these brackets, it's going to get the name from here. So you'll notice when we set up our index.html file, we called it main.bundle.js. So here we're getting the name from here, and then we're just going to type .bundle, which is an industry standard term for basically bringing a whole bunch of JavaScript into one file. We need to tell it where to save it by putting path down here, and we're going to use our path module that we put in at the top here and just type path.resolve global variable of dir name right here, public / scripts. Oh, it's not scripts, sorry, it's JS. Like that. And now we need to basically tell it what to do. It knows it's picking the script up from here, it knows it's putting it here, but it doesn't know what it's doing with it, so we type module. Module has another object in it called rules, which is an array of different rules. Sorry. So here we go. So we need to tell it to test. This is how it's going to know what files to actually process. We're going to type a regular expression here. .js or JSX. Bam. So that's basically telling us that, put $sign here. This is basically saying match any file that ends in .js or JSX. We need to exclude specific files. We're going to exclude the node modules folder. That's really important because otherwise it could go in and process all of this stuff. It will take a million years and your bundle will be humongous. So we're going to tell it what to use here. And this is where we say loader, and we want it to use the Babel loader. There we go. Okay, again, this might seem complex to set up. Once you set it up once, you don't have to set it up again. It's just going to work. We only have one last thing we have to do, and that's going into our package.json file, and that's creating a build script. So under scripts, you have a bunch of scripts you can run with npm on the project. For example, we have this test script, which basically says there's no test specified and exit. So if I said in the terminal npm run test, it would say no test script specified here, which is what's here. But we want to add one underneath a new term. We're going to call it build. We're going to simply run webpack right here. We're going to give it the -w command, which means to watch. So webpack's going to watch the files, and if any of them change, it's going to automatically rerun the process. And we're going to tell it to do it in development mode by typing -- mode development. If we didn't, if we set it to production, it would shrink the script significantly, but it also means that the error reporting feedback would be largely unusable for us. It would not be human understandable. This basically means that if there are errors in the code, it's still big enough that the reporting can have enough context for us to identify the issues. So now if I actually run that, I go npm run build. Oh, I've got an issue here. Missing script build. I've not saved it. Let's run it again. It's running webpack. Webpack's watching the files, and see, we've built a file. If we go into here, we've got our main.bundle.js we identified in index.html. Now, you don't have to understand this. This is basically Babel and Webpack translating what's in the source directory into something the browser understands. If I find this index.html file in Finder and I open it in Firefox here, remember we put a console log in there, we should see it here. We got the @file console log. So our JavaScript is being correctly translated from this JSX file to this JavaScript file, but we also now can write JSX. So what I'm going to do at the top here is I'm going to import React from React. I'm going to import React DOM from React DOM at the top here. I'm going to create a function at the top here, which is our app function. I'm going to return basically what we did in video 1, which is basically a h1 tag. I'm going to say hello React right here. So this is a function, and all it does is return this h1 tag, and then just like we did in the first video, I'm going to render that to the DOM using React DOM. .render. Our first argument is the component we want to render. It's our app component, and we can use this self-enclosed tag style syntax now because we've set up our webpack to process this. And we just need to say document.querySelector will basically find our container, which we set as React container. Oh, don't know what happened there. Right there. So if we save this, now because this file changed and we're using Webpack on watch mode, it's already rerun the bundle and rebuilt it again. So let's go back to Firefox here, refresh. We get our Hello React component right here, and if we go into our components tool, we can see that we have the app rendering correctly. Now, a really quick last thing before we end this video is I want to express again that React is strictly front end, and if we were to take the contents of this public directory and put it on a server that only serves static files, it would work. This app.jsx file is not being requested by the browser. It's not understood by the browser. This is being processed by Webpack. Everything that's being processed in this folder is being put here into this Webpack bundle. We don't understand it. The browser does, and the HTML script brings that in. So this does not need a web server. It is still a static front-end web project. We're just processing scripts for it, and it could be served by a static file server on the internet. In fact, you can put this in GitHub pages, which is what I've done for the project as well, and it will work just fine. So that's about it for setting up the development environment.